Hello and welcome to the 495. I'm your host, Doug Sparks, editor-in-chief of Merrimack Valley Magazine. And before I ask Lou how he's doing, because I want to find out, I just want to let everybody know this one was recorded on Sunday, but it's airing on Monday. So if you're used to watching this on Facebook and thinking that this is happening live, it's not. It happened yesterday. It happened yesterday morning. Lou, how are you doing today?
Doing very well.
Yeah.
Sunday's work day for me. So,
okay. Yeah. All right. So you get
so it's just added in, just another thing. It's great.
It can be work day, for me too, obviously.
Yep.
I am excited. I'm excited about Calvin Kattar fighting on Saturday.
Yes.
So for people who don't realize this, Calvin Kattar is a UFC fighter from Methuen. He went to Methuen High. He wrestled on the Methuen High wrestling team, and he is fighting the number 2 guy in the UFC for the feather. And this will put him in line if he wins. And I think he has an excellent chance for the featherweight title. And this is going to be a very unusual event because it's going to be on ABC. It's not going to be pay-per-view.
TV, yep.
It's going to be on network TV. So you're going to be able to check this out and cheer for Calvin. He's on the cover of the latest issue of Merrimack Valley Magazine. He's very pro-local, very enthusiastic about coming from this region. In some sense, he's like a classic, Merrimack Valley guy.
Oh, yeah.
As like an underdog,
yep.
As someone who kind of comes in and, people, he always kind of punches up. I think he has a great chance against Max Holloway, and I'll be cheering for him, and I hope everybody from the
he's got that it, doesn't he?
Yeah.
I mean, if he gets to the national stage to the level we think we are, he's going to make some hay because he's got it.
He has it, and he's also genuinely a nice guy. Now, I used to sort of be in the fight world a little bit. I taught jiu-jitsu for a while. To be at a really, really high level, no surprise. There are some people who are. Maybe not soci. I'm never going to use the word sociopath, but there are people there who are not necessarily who you want babysitting your kids.
Yeah.
He was genuinely nice. I was in on the photo shoot we did on not the one on the cover, but for the inside pages, and he's just a genuinely nice guy. I liked all the team. They were really, really funny, really easy to be around. It was a great environment, great energy, great vibe. Couldn't happen to a nicer person. It was my sense of things. So speaking of local, our guests today are from Purple Carrot Bread Company in Lowell. Doug and Alaina Brackett, how are you this morning?
We are good. Thanks for having us on.
Absolutely. So this is kind of your day to sleep in normally.
Yes.
You keep baker's hours, right?
Yeah, Doug usually goes in at 4 to start baking bread, and then I come back at 5 or 6 to just start brewing coffee and get ready for the morning.
Yeah.
It's a busy day. It's midnight.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. I know. I told you guys before the show, I used to work in the coffee industry, and I remember people, and there's some periphery of baking and that kind of world. And we did that too. In order to roast coffee, you have to get up and get everything going before the UPS people arrive at 3 p.m., which means, 4:30. And there's an appeal to it. To me, there's that feeling of getting up when it's still dark out. And everybody else, for the most part, is still kind of asleep. Do you like that, or do you fight?
He does.
Yeah, I like that.
It's kind of fun watching the world wake up.
Yeah, I like that, and I like that as a guy who I think deep down was a night person. I lived in New York City for 10 years. I used to go to bed at 4 a.m, and I kind of had to reinvent myself. I had to reinvent myself when I came back to this area because I wasn't going to survive unless I was just going to be like a security guard. Or I don't know. Who knows? A bouncer in a nightclub. I don't know. But I had to embrace it, and I was like, well, if I'm going to do this, I'm really going to go for it, and I'm just going to. Right. And there is that kind of pleasure in the world is quiet and the world is still, and I almost imagine baking at 4 a.m. or 4:30, whenever you get in there, as being almost like meditative, or there being a contemplative component. Do you experience that?
It's very relaxing.
Yeah.
Like just me and the dough.
Yeah, just you and the dough. So
that's right.
People, I follow. I lived in Lowell for a time. I have a lot of friends who live downtown and in that area, and people love Purple Carrot. I see them posting about it in a way they don't post about other places. People love to say, hey, I stopped by Purple Carrot today, and I got some sandwiches, and I picked things up. People love this place. What is it that they love?
Well, we're so small that we literally know most of our customers on a first name and site basis.
Yeah.
I think that makes a big difference. We work really hard to have less processed foods, so If you're getting a turkey sandwich, we made the turkey. We don't make our cheese, but we do make our roasted turkey, and then the braised short ribs we do as well.
Yeah. What are the most popular items on the menu right now?
Short rib grilled cheese,
That sounds good.
right?
Yeah.
My kids would love it. They're big grilled cheese fans. I should. You're not open today, are you?
No.
No.
Okay. Now we're airing Monday, so are you open Monday?
Yes.
Yes.
What are your hours?
Monday through Friday, we're open 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. And then on Saturday, 9 to 5.
Okay. So, if we had had this conversation a year ago, it would be very different because the world has changed and it has really impacted your industry. What is life like for you under COVID?
Well, sales immediately decreased by 50%. And we immediately did a pivot to more like catering, take and bakes, like family meals where people take home a meal and they can bake it at home.
Or pick it up hot, it's ready to eat. And that seemed to even out the sheer lack of numbers in downtown, because really before the pandemic, lunch was when we did most of our business. You work in downtown, you live in downtown, those are our customers. But when the banks and the schools closed to the public, all those people went away. So we did the pivot with the take and bakes, and we've been heavily promoting on Merrimack Valley Eats and a few other Facebook sites. And basically we try to keep the menu live and in everybody's mind. And you can order like a couple size, which is like 2 or 3 portions, and a family size, which is like 5 to 7 portions. And you can pick it up either hot or cold. You just have to order that morning or for the next day.
So you bring it up. You mentioned the Facebook sites, and I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the Facebook sites and your thoughts on the comments section, which can sometimes go off, can get a little bit crazy. And also places like Yelp. I know a lot of restaurants really struggle with Yelp, with people kind of thinking that their particular preference, because they like, a sandwich to be such and such an inch thick, like that's the way all sandwiches ought to be. And they get, have these things been good for you? Is it something you struggle with?
It hasn't been overly scary, but I've seen some brutal comments for other businesses, and it has made me leery to post in the past. I've posted stuff also about like price hikes. Like when the pandemic first happened, eggs at the depot went from $14 a case of a 15 dozen case to over $40-50 overnight.
Yeah.
And, I try to post things that can kind of be an eye-opener for those people that are eviscerating small businesses on the websites. I mean, most of the people who started those pages have worked really hard to, like, change the culture.
I think he's talking more about, like, Yelp and Google.
Well, the whole, but continue. I want to get your thoughts in general.
Alaina right now is talking about, like, we remember
like Facebook pages.
We remember a couple of private Facebook pages, which are food oriented, like Merrimack Valley Eats is like a really big one.
And in and around Lowell, Food and Drink. But they, like you said, the comments can be harsh.
Yeah.
We haven't experienced anything overly harsh. If complaints happen, we always want people to call us and let us know if something wasn't right, and we'll make it right.
Yeah.
That's just how we do business. So overall, if there has been a complaint, the first response, once I respond, is I'm so glad you responded as quickly as you did. And we get to the bottom of the problem, whatever it is.
I mean, sometimes there's an order mix-up or like whatever it is. Like at the end of the day, if we have to, we'll drive it out to the customer.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how did this whole thing start? Why bread? Where are the origins? What's the history of Purple Carrot?
So I was a professional. I was a restaurant chef for a long time, and I kind of got. Actually, I have to go back further than that. During the 2008 housing crisis, I was a restaurant chef at an American bistro in Worcester, which is now closed. But I could just tell they were closing. And a friend of mine owned an artisan bread bakery in Western Mass called Five Loaves. And he was opening dinner at night, and it was a farm to table concept. And he needed like a restaurant chef. So what we would do is we would buy the ingredients, and then we'd create a different menu every week. We'd have like 5 entrees and 5 like small plates. And we just do that like 4 or 5 nights a week. And I met Alaina, and we got married. And part of my salary was I lived above the bakery, so when I woke up every morning, I could smell fresh bread. And I didn't have, and like I worked there 3 or 4 years, so I always had access to fresh bread. And we moved out to Lowell. I was like, okay, I got a job working at a very nice country club, and I was like, where do we get the good bread? And Alaina, you tell it.
I was there for like 20 minutes going through all the towns, and I'm like, there's nowhere like that has good bread. Like I went through, just different towns, just trying to see what I remembered from when I grew up in Lowell. And he finally was like, fine, I'll just make my own. And he, for a couple weeks, was tinkering with it. And then one day out of the blue was like, here, try this. And I was like, this is really good bread. So we ended up.
So she, without my knowledge, took the bread. She found out that there was a farm market on Jackson Street. And she's like, Jackson Street? Well, like, my mother wouldn't even let me walk down there when I was a kid. And she went up there with her loaf of bread and brought it to the farm market manager. And she's like, okay, can you do this next week?
So we were selling bread the next week at the farm market, and that's literally how we got started.
Keep in mind, I still had my full-time chef job, so we rented a space at a local church, and we're producing bread out of there.
Yeah. It's we did an article on artisan bread a couple of years ago. I think it was a couple of Januaries ago, and I think the idea for it originally came because for a time I lived in Woodstock, New York. Right. And in downtown Woodstock, you have Bread Alone, which is like it's something I just love. It's like it's actually very similar to Purple Carrot in a lot of ways. Mm-hmm. Like the feel of it, and it's like people kind of know you there, and the food is really good, and the bread is like amazing. And I always remember thinking, man, I wish I wish this was around. That was where the idea came from. Where is the Bread Alone of the Merrimack Valley? And it was pretty tough. It was pretty tough to find people like you throughout the region doing that kind of stuff. Is there something magical about bread itself? Is there something about that food that is just like makes it so that how long has it been around for? 2,000 years?
I don't know.
It's ancient.
Why is it still with us? Why are we still talking about bread after it was invented thousands of years ago?
It's like the first meal. Like, I don't know. It's just flour, water, and salt.
Yeah.
I think that it's a comfort food. I think it's a food that you would bring through the ages to someone that you were visiting. I think it's not complex. So I think that's why it's come through the ages and is something that is still talked about.
Yeah. Is there a tension between innovation, like in coming up with new sandwiches and new things for people to eat, and preserving the traditional aspect of bread?
I think that bread is simple. You can add other things to the bread, to like other components in a sandwich, but bread itself doesn't need to change or be reinvented.
For me personally, I feel like the start of the sandwich is you always start with the bread, and everything else is just a garnish. It's just an embellishment.
Yeah, I kind of think. There's so much. My feeling is that in general, people are better educated about food and culinary culture now, probably because of, the Food Network and stuff on TV, which is very family friendly. So you can kind of watch it with the kids and you can kind of learn a lot. And it's, I would imagine that at least some of my grandparents, if I said, hey, do you want a short rib sandwich, would have gotten very confused and been like, what is that? No, I just want grilled cheese.
Right.
So there's some But I think to your average, maybe millennial, a short rib sandwich there's nothing strange or odd or exotic about that.
Well, I came from fine dining, and I really wanted to take like a fine dining aspect to a casual concept. So, well, like I use traditional like French and European techniques, like when we braise our short ribs, for example, or like the bread is all European based. And I really wanted to take like a chef, like we make all the dressings, all the sauces, like all the soups are made from scratch. We won the Lowell, what's it called?
The Winterfest soup competition,
Yeah,
3 years in a row.
Yeah, we won it 3 years in a row. So it's like everything I serve is something I would eat.
Yeah, why do you do this to yourselves? I mean, I obviously we love it, but I hear that a lot in restaurant industry is that people like doing this stuff takes a massive amount of time. Do you feel like, maybe we should just simplify this aspect or make this or not do this thing from scratch just to give ourselves a little bit of, like, save a couple pennies or save a little bit of time? Not interested?
It's not the same. Like, it's like a slippery slope. Like, you start buying a dressing or a sauce or something, then you're buying, like, soups, like... It's a form of not caring.
How do you let people know? I mean, obviously, I would imagine if I went into a place like, Purple Carrot for the first time and you make your own dressing, that changes the experience for me. How do people know that you're putting this much care into what they're eating? How do you educate?
I think a lot of it is in education. When people come in, and they're like, oh, this is my first time here, I'm usually quick to say, all the meats are roasted here. We make our own dressings. Soup is made from scratch, and that usually, if that's going to be something that they care about, you'll know in the first 2 sentences. If they want to hear more, then I'll expand on it.
Sure. You mentioned the soup, so I want to hear about the soup, and I also want to hear about, like, what else do you have it's on the menu? So there's sandwiches, and then there's other things. What are these other things?
We do about 8 different salads from scratch. There is no iceberg lettuce in-house. It's not a great way to get nutritional value. We use kale, we use spring mix, we use romaine, and then we also do grain bowls, and then the take and bakes have really been what's been helping us through the pandemic.
So before I turn this over to Lou, because he's going to have some questions, I Facebook stalked Doug. Alaina, I don't know if you have a Facebook page. If you do, I couldn't find it. But I Facebook stalked you. There's not a lot up there. But there is some stuff about Star Wars. Are you a Star Wars fan?
Science fiction in general.
Science fiction. So what did you think of The Mandalorian? We'll get to the hard questions now. What do you think of The Mandalorian?
I love it.
It's fantastic, right? Did you cry?
The best thing on
Did
TV
you cry
I watched
when Luke came out with the lightsaber? Be honest.
Oh, I cried.
All right. I appreciate your candor.
Wait a second. Spoiler alert here.
Well, come on. It's out there. It's out there, everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was fantastic, and definitely, I think, a lot of fans of Star Wars were concerned about where.
I try to keep my business and my personal page separate.
That was the sense I got. There wasn't that much there.
Occasionally, I'll share something, but it's like I don't want to dilute, like, bombard the people I'm friends with like my business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure. So science fiction meaning, books and movies and TV shows, or just all of it?
I grew up watching Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Okay. And is that your favorite Star Trek still, or do you prefer the original, or where are you at?
I like the original, but it hasn't dated very well.
I agree. My favorite is The Next Generation.
And like
yeah, although in some ways they went beyond a lot of that too, I think.
Yeah, well, like,
it was progressive for its
Star
day.
Trek is it always had something to say. It always had a message.
Yeah, I mean, and there's
At
also
a young age, I realized that.
Yeah, I mean, I find something, beyond just, I'm a boy at heart and I would love to be zipping around, the
Right.
cosmos in a cool ship.
Of course, there's all that.
Yeah, and that's cool. But it's like at the end of the day, you have all the these kind of diverse characters who have different cultures and come from these different places who still manage to kind of get along and get things done. And there's something compelling, that's fantasy in and of itself someday. And I find that very, very compelling. Aside from just, how, kind of clever it was and how it spoke to issues of the day in a way that they couldn't have done if it wasn't science fiction.
Correct.
Lou, do you have questions for our guests?
Yeah, it's funny you bring this all up because I'm just revisiting Next Gen on Pluto.
Yeah.
The last couple of weeks
and do you love it?
Picking episodes. Yeah, I mean, it has its dating problems.
Sure.
But it's still, still quality. It's still good, still compelling. Because you like the characters.
Yeah.
Like any good fiction, if you get into the characters, almost everything goes.
Right.
I want to ask you guys about the war on bread because as we chase diet after diet after diet, and we have to renounce here in New England our Wonder Bread upbringing. How do you speak to people who recoil at the whole thought of bread these days? Because that's kind of where we're at as a society. Bread. I'm not touching bread.
I think from a community point of view, I'll let Doug touch on like the mechanics of it. But when people come in, a lot of the times. Some will say, "Oh, I'm gluten-free," and if it's because they have celiacs or they have an intolerance, I always ask that first. But if it's just because that bread is bad, anything is bad in excess. Nothing is good for you in excess. The good things about our bread is there's minimal ingredients. There's not a lot of chemicals. There's not a lot of other ingredients that you can't pronounce. There's water, salt, yeast, and flour, and that's it. And whatever it is, if it's garlic and rosemary, then there's garlic and rosemary. But there's no fillers. There's no preservatives. There's no anything extra. A lot of people will call and say, "Does your bread have a lot of salt?" It really doesn't. We do it in small batches of like 8, and that's how many tablespoons?
5.
5 tablespoons of salt in 8 whole loaves of bread total.
Wow.
And so I think that from a educational point of view, that's kind of how I attack those questions. I don't know if you have something to say about from a cooking point of view.
Like the sourdough is made with wild yeast, so from a starter, so it doesn't even have commercial yeast in it, and a lot of
Customer.
a lot of customers find that maybe gluten intolerant can eat sourdough because it's easier to digest.
But the important awareness here is that
commercial yeast.
The important awareness here is that Wonder Bread and white bread is a whole different animal than what you guys are producing, right?
It's not really bread.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
There's a thing in Wonder Bread called dough conditioner. I don't even really know what that is, but conditioner belongs in your hair, not in your bread.
Let's go back to the COVID part of this for a while, and I don't want to make this into a moratorium or anything, but how long can you survive under the current conditions? How strenuous are the current conditions for your business?
Without government financial aid?
Yeah.
Not very long.
I've been appealing to our community because everybody in Lowell and the surrounding towns, our customers who've been, buying bread from us for a long time, are aware that we are struggling. And the way that we have been able to survive really has been the take and bake family entree meals. If we can continue to get steady, business through that, even if it's 5 different orders a day, it will help make up the difference for what we're not getting from the lunch crowd in downtown.
Honestly, it's scary because we've watched restaurant after restaurant on Merrimack Street close down.
Yeah.
And we're still here. I'm not sure why.
Everything is tied into our business. There's no backup plan for us. Like, this is our business. And we work really hard, long days, and we're very thankful for the community. But it is a very precarious balance right now.
What is the scary date for you? In other words, if I said to you right now, we're not going to jump another level of recovery or return until, say, April 1st, how would you react to that?
I don't know.
That's a hard date, isn't it?
I don't know. Sometimes it's like everything's evaluated on a daily and a weekly basis right now.
Right.
On honestly, we do farm markets. So basically, as long as we can get to farm market season, we're okay, which is around June.
Yep. This period has obviously changed your business, and you guys adapted quickly, as you talked about. What are some of the changes that occurred because of COVID that you're going to take forward permanently in your business?
I definitely have learned a lot. I mean, we've always cleaned the cafe like every other business, but learning how this virus is contagious and just having better disinfecting practices is important. That's something that won't change, things I didn't think about before, I definitely am adding to my regular cleaning, and I don't plan to stop that. As far as food,
I feel like DoorDash and Grubhub aren't going anywhere, and that will be a permanent part of food service business going forward.
yeah,
Do you regret that?
Um,
it's
they
a necessary evil.
it takes 30%, so like it's a lot.
It took about 3 months pre-pandemic of just letting it build so that doing it became worth it. We get enough business from it now that it's not as bad feeling the 30%, but it's still a big chunk.
Yeah. What are other ways people can support you if they just want to support a local business? Do you have gift certificates? Do you sell T-shirts? Do you sell merchandise? What else can they, if they want to go
Yeah,
throw
we
a couple
do.
bucks your way, what do they
We do
do?
have gift cards. You can buy them over the phone or come in and purchase them. The take and bakes, there's a menu on our website, full menu. Again, we have family size, couple size. That's really the quickest way to help us. We do sell totes that say Purple Carrot, and
We're gonna be publishing a Valentine's Day menu any day now.
Yeah.
yeah.
Dinners
So
for two.
yeah,
And you will let us know when
yeah,
that's ready. So we will spread the good word.
yeah.
I have one last digression for you before we say goodbye. I have to ask because I wrote an article for Merrimack Valley Magazine a couple of years ago on clocks, and I'm looking in the back right now and I see something I don't normally see these days. You have a grandfather clock. Please tell me what there has to be a story there.
It's our mother, Doug's mother-in-law lives with us, and her late husband. It was his clock, and so it's definitely part of the home.
Do
And
you wind it every day? Does it still work?
no, we haven't gotten it serviced in a while, but we definitely keep it as part of our remembrance of him.
Yeah. Well, there are some as I found, there are some clockmakers in the Merrimack Valley. So if you want to support them, so, when you're ready, go have them tinker with that thing and get it working. Because man, there are that's a cool sight. That's very cool to see. Anyways, my guests today have been Doug and Alaina Brackett from Purple Carrot Bread Company in Lowell. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank
All
you.
right, take care, guys.